Hi there, welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial we will be looking at lights in Blender, and especially how to set up lights in Blender for isometric games. So we're going to use Blender as a reference to light up a scene in an isometric environment. So first of all, let's go into the camera. So press Ctrl 0 to go into camera view. We need to set the camera to as an isometric camera. So let's go to camera settings, set it to orthographic, and then you can adjust the scale so that it encompasses more of the scene. So I'm just gonna make the scale slightly higher. We might adjust this a little bit later. Right, the second thing we want to do after we've set it to orthographic is change the angle. So we want to change that to 60 and the bottom one to 45 degrees. So in the rotation panel, set that to 60 and 45 degrees. So this should give us a great isometric view of our scene. By pressing N, you will collapse and expand this panel on the right. So N will hide that, or you can press that little button there to unhide it. Right, so what I've done is I've set up a scene, but before we do that, I just want to talk about the 4 specific lights we've got in Blender. So let's select that light, and when you open Blender, it usually starts off with the point light as the default light. So let's quickly go into images, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about each of them. So the first light, which is point light, almost mimics any kind of light source, human-made light source, like a candle, a torch, or a bulb. So it's great to use in these instances. Then we've got a few settings there, the power of the light. So the higher the wattage, the brighter the light will be, and the lower the wattage, the lower or the weaker the light gets. Diffuse, specular, volume, don't worry about that too much. I think leave that at default. Then you've got radius. So you'll see that if I expand if I make the radius larger, it creates a larger radius around the light, which makes the light the way the light travels a little bit farther or closer to the light. So for a candle, you would make this shorter. For a torch, you can make the radius a little bit wider, and for a very bright light, you can make it quite wide. So say for instance we make it 2 meters, so the range will be further if you make the radius a little bit bigger. So let's leave it at 1 for the moment, and that's 1000 watts. Then the second light, which is the sun. What I wanted to say about the point light, it casts soft shadows. It really is closest to candle or a torch or a bulb. So in those instances, it casts the light, or it radiates from that point in all directions. So you'll see when we get to that, I'll recap on that again. So the light radiates from that point. So for the sun, the light radiates in a straight line in one direction, which creates parallel shadows. So you'll see that the shadows in this scene here, it converges to the horizon, but if you look closely, you'll see that each of those lines are parallel to each other. And that's because the sun's rays are so far away that by the time it reaches Earth, the shadows all go in the same direction. And the sunlight in Blender mimics that. Alright, so then we move on to the spotlight. And the spotlight is basically it radiates in a conical shape. So it's a cone, and then it radiates from that point in that cone shape. So that's usually where you've got a scene like a stage set up. We've got a light, a spotlight, to just show so that the light is concentrated in one spot. It also works very well for street lamps and the likes. So a spot lamp, and then the area light, which is more like the lights they use in photography. It's a box light. It also the light only goes in one direction. It's very similar to the spotlight, but again here the light rays are parallel to each other instead of the conical shape like in the spotlight. And all of the lights got the same settings more or less. So if you look at each of the lights, there's just a few lights that have variables, but the main lights that the main settings that we use are very similar to each other. Alright, so let's quickly, I've created a scene, just a silly little scene here, and let's add lights into that scene. So alright, so I'm going to use Eevee, but the lights are very similar in cycles as well. So but for quicker renders, let's use Eevee. So go into render view, and currently you'll see that it's very dark in there. So let's add a light. Let's start off with a point light. Right, let's bring that light down, and once it's close to the scene, you'll see it starts lighting up the scene. So this is good for when your character or when you've got areas where there's a light that radiates in all directions. You can change the color of the light. So for instance, it's more of a fire or a torch, then you can use that the color, change the color to a warmer tone, so that it looks like it represents a fire or a torch. Let's increase the wattage to 100, and you'll see that it gets quite strong. I think for a fire, let's make it 30, for instance. So this is a way to mimic that kind of light. So let's leave that light at the door, and let's create a sun. Now the sun. No, let's leave that. Alright, so let's add another light. This time we call it sun. Let's make that 0.5 and change the angle. So inside view, I'm just gonna rotate it that way, and in front view mode, I'm just gonna rotate that way. And you'll see that the shadows are very parallel. You'll see that this side and this side doesn't converge. So that's why the sunlight mimics sunlight. So let's move the sunlight like that. I'm going to change the color to a warmer color, like for instance a yellow, and let's increase the strength to 4. I'm going to go into top view mode. I'm going to duplicate it and rotate it in 180 degrees. I'm going to go back into camera view mode, and this time I'm going to make the light cooler like that, and the strength to 0.5. So if we toggle this on and off, you'll see it creates that ambient light. And to really push the ambient light, let's put off shadow. So that will create the ambient light. So what's nice about this is you can change the ambient to anything you want. So for instance, you want a magical purplish color, you can change it to that purplish color, which would be the complementary of a yellowish sunlight. Alright, so and then let's add a spotlight in here. Let's put this to, let's create a new collection and let's call that sunlight. And let's put the sun, both suns into there and put it into the light section. Alright, let's disable that for the moment. Let's add a point light, a spotlight. So this light is very similar to the point light. The only difference is it's got a conical shape. So it's a mix between the point light, this light, and the sunlight, but the rays is in a conical shape. We can change this light's blending mode. So let's make it 0.75, and you'll see that the circle, the spot, gets softer. You can make this wider as well, like so for instance 60. Let's make it 120. So now it's quite wide. If we make it, if we make the angle smaller, the circle also gets smaller. And we can bump that up to say 1. And you can also show cone so that you can see where the cone goes and what it looks like. Alright, so let's disable that. And let's make that light a turquoise light. So if we rotate it like that, the shape of the lights, where the light falls, will also change, and you'll also see that closer to the light, the light is brighter, and as it goes away from the light, it fades. So let's change that color back to almost like a whitish color. So for instance, in a medieval scene, you won't use this kind of light that much. Right, and then, okay, let's leave that light in here and just disable it. And let's have an area light. Area light. Now this light works well if you've got a window. Say for instance, we've got a scene like this, and we want the light from the sun coming into the room. We can rotate this on the X by 90 and then just place it into the window or the doorway, like that for instance. So if we are inside now, and let's put on the sunlight, and okay, let's do this. Let's put a roof on this castle. So if we are inside now, that area light creates the illusion of light coming into the room. So let's change that to 35. Okay, so the area light, if we switch it off, we only get the sunlight. But if we switch it on, we get that ambient light coming in from outside. We can also change the color of the light to mimic whatever light whatever the color of the light is we've got outside. Right. So now, if we go back into camera view, we've got all of those light leads with the spotlight on as well. Alright, so the spotlight we'll need to make much stronger to make him visible. Right, so, and that's how I would that's how you use these kind of lights to light up your scene for asymmetric. So just gonna push that down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to give this another color so that we can have a look. So say for instance it's a grayish stone wall. And we select all of those and say they share the same material. And now you can see you can use this lighting setup to if you are going to use if you're going to hand paint this, you can have this build this scene in Blender as a reference point on how to color your scene. I'll do another tutorial where I do use this and paint over paint a scene and show how I use the colors of the lighting here to paint my scene. So let's quickly go into the sun. Let's make that sun, let's leave it like that. Let's make the sun a little bit more stronger purplish color. Let's remove the point light from the render. And then the spotlight as well. That might be a bit too strong. Right, then yeah, I think the point light, we've got the area light is in there, so let's remove that as well, and the point light which lights up the scene from inside the castle. Point light, where are you? Right, let's take him inside the castle and let's make that 10 so it's not too strong. Okay, and the radius also should influence the shadows, so the crispness of the shadows. So for instance, if I leave it at 1 or 0, you'll see it's a very crisp shadow. If I make it say 5 or rather 1, it softens the edges of the light like that. Okay, so I hope this is helpful and that you'd be able to use this in creating a reference for your isometric scenes. Okay, so what it helps when you want to understand how shadows fall on the objects that you have painted. So it takes away the guesswork. So for instance, this moat as well, you can see that instead of the shadow going straight, it goes down and then into the moat and comes up on that edge. And it also helps if you've got the second light on to give some color to your shadows. So I can change this to a blue color, even a green. So you can manipulate this till you are happy with your color scheme and how the light influences your scene. I hope it helps, and if you have any questions, please comment in the comments below. Ask any questions you have and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Happy blending and happy drawing.